love the police. So in the British paper, The Independent, writer Owen Jones has a piece titled, "Getting rid of George W. Bush wasn't enough. The U.S. remains a bully." You can smell the patchouli wafting from the pages. To Jones, it doesn't matter who's president. The issue is U.S. power. And he rejoices that, quote, "With the last remaining superpower at its weakest since World War II, there is an unmissable opening to argue for a more equal and just world order, restricting the ability of great powers to throw their weight around." In teachers' lounge speak, that's death to America. So the lesson: in a world where creeps hate our achievement, appeasement makes them hate you more. And this is where anti-exceptionalism leads us, to braying jackals like Jones, who really just reflects the same anti-Americanism found here among the typical occupier or the clowns at Soros-funded blogs. That's the scary part. You get the feeling Jones could have written an Obama stump speech back in 2007. But sensible folks must realize that a powerful America will always be the enemy of the left. And the only way for America to remain awesome is to assume our awesomeness and stop apologizing. Because America will only be embraced when it's defeated. And that embrace will not be warm. The last thing we can expect is to be shown the mercy or appreciation that the left insists we show our enemies. For libs, that's the true American exceptionalism. We are and always will be the best at being bad. So, Juan, do you think President Obama has finally figured it out that exceptionalism is actually an exceptional idea?
You know, you're so smart that it's hard for me sometimes. I have to, like, cogitate to figure it out, Greg.
I don't even know what I'm saying, Juan.
So it was a trap.
It was
a Dana-inspired trap.
Exactly.
You sneaky man.
I've been so nice today.
It was squirreless.
It was squirreless. It was hamster-like in its deviousness.
You know what's funny about this? That the occupier-in-chief, a.k.a. the Nobel Peace Prize winner, is the guy who uses the most drones, has a kill list. It must just drive people like this crazy.
Well,
they don't know where to go with it.
That's what he said. That was the argument in the piece.
But I understand that. But the man, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, is doing things that may be seen by guys like him and Chris Hayes as bullying and bad. They don't know where to go with it.
I think it's driving you crazy. I think it's driving you crazy that President Obama is strong on national security and that the American people in this election have taken national security away from the Republicans.
He's got a kill list.
It's a democratic issue.
I actually think on foreign policy, you could take on foreign policy one by one and argue quite effectively, as Rick Grinnell, a friend of ours, writes in Esquire magazine today. Let's just take Syria, for example. Leading from behind, which was not a phrase that any of us came up with. It came up with their own administration, came up with leading from behind in Libya, Egypt, now Syria. And I would rather be feared than liked.
Yeah.
Well, not in my personal life.
Don't worry about that problem, Dana.
Are you scared of me?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I think Mr. Gaddafi's pretty scared of us. I think Saddam Hussein is scared of us. I don't think anybody thinks we're a bunch of punks. Let me just tell you that. I don't know where this idea comes from.
I think it's better to be respected. And when Owen goes back to school and he finishes the 9th grade.
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you see that picture?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Maybe he can take history class again and learn about names like Hitler, Mussolini, all evil dictators that the United States helped defeat. And they didn't just help defeat them. They went back and they helped rebuild Europe.
Yeah.
And they traded with Europe. And now look at Germany. It has one of the most strong economies in Europe. They're actually keeping the rest of Europe afloat. So without the United States being stronger, being on some level a cop, this country would never be where it is today.
Let me just stir the pot.
And the world wouldn't either.
Let me stir the pot. Let me get the red in your cheeks as well as that beautiful dress.
Flattery will get you nowhere.
Oh, it'll get me everywhere. But let me just say, the fact is, we have a military that is so vastly superior to any other that when we take action, we do dictate the terms of the agreements or deals. And you know what?
That's wrong. That's bad.
Well, it's not good if people resent us, and if we then are, in fact, generating resentment that leads to terrorists and enemies of the United States.
I resent that you can say that out one side of your mouth, and then when people around the world need help, where do they go? They come here for help. They say, help us out, help us feed. Haiti has an earthquake, a storm, an earthquake. Help us feed them. There are starving people around the world. They ask us for help.
Yes.
That we have other people encroaching. Kuwait had Iraq encroaching on it. Say, help us out. Help. They ask us for our help. But you're telling me when it's a military power and might, it's a bad thing?
When it's military might that's being used to simply project our power and self-interest. That's why I like it. Look, well, we certainly have a record.
No, we don't express our power.
We have supported dictators and people who are authoritarian leaders for our self-interest. That's a fact. And I like. Let me just say this to Dana. I know I'm. Excuse me. I just apologize.
No.
But to Dana, that you know what? I'm a big fan of President Bush on the idea of promoting freedom and democracy in the world. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, yeah," but look at who those people elect. I think it's the right thing. If that's military power, I'm cool with that.
The best thing that the America could do for the world is to grow our economy again. A strong America, a strong economic power, as well as a military power, is critically important. And these guys are like the environment movement. Republicans always chase that green vote and always try to work with them on climate change or anything, and nothing will ever be enough because it is their cause. So like this kid that writes this thing, nothing America ever does will ever be enough, so we might as well just be the strongest and the best.
That's the point.
But
thank you.
And to your point, that's why the deficit and the debt is the #1 most important issue. But real quick one, what I was trying to get in was, President Obama has called for Mubarak to step down, and he did step down. And now we have the Muslim Brotherhood who's taken over in Egypt, and now they're slaughtering Christians. And you don't really hear anything about that. So I don't think you can just hail President Obama as this brilliant foreign leader who's strong on foreign policy.
No, but I think we had to support the Arab Spring. I think we have to support freedom and democracy.
Then why didn't he support the Green Movement
come on.
in
You think we're not supporting them?
He didn't.
We are supporting
He had the chance in
But let me just tell you, you know what? One final thing. There are polls now about levels of resentment towards the United States worldwide. There's just not a whole lot of it to support this kid's thesis. You know where there is resentment? Russia and China, because they're competing and they're jealous of our power. That's very telling.
All right, on that note, we must move on.